Taeho Kim stood in the big dining room of the spaceship, Unity's dawn, and stirred his hot coffee with a metal spoon. The ship was very quiet at nighttime, but he could not sleep, so he came here to drink coffee and think about his job. The ship was carrying the most important alien people in 3 whole galaxies. They were all coming together for a big peace meeting that would decide if humans could join the Galactic Council. This was supposed to be humanity's chance to prove they belonged. With all the other space-traveling specialists, Taeho was the chief engineer on the ship, which meant he was in charge of making sure all the machines worked properly. He thought this job would be easy and quiet. He would stay in the engine room and fix things while the important people talked about politics, but things were not going the way he planned. There were 12 different groups of alien royal families living on the ship right now. Each group was stranger than the last one. Princess Ava came from a planet where everyone had skin made of crystal. She complained every day that the ship's lights were too dim and primitive. Prince Kai was part of an insect race called the Hive Collective. He would only eat food that was still moving around on his plate. The worst ones were the deep-water nobles who came from an ocean planet. They wanted their rooms filled with poisonous water from their homeworld. Taeho had asked to work on this mission because he thought it would be peaceful. He wanted to spend his time fixing engines and checking power systems far away from all the political drama. But now he was starting to think he had made a big mistake. 3 weeks ago, when the ship first left Earth, everything seemed normal. The alien visitors stayed in their fancy rooms and attended boring meetings about trade agreements and territorial boundaries. Taeho spent his days in the engine room with his tools and his coffee, and life was good. But then strange things started happening. It began with small problems that did not make sense. The food machines would break down right when certain aliens were nearby. The air cleaning system would stop working in specific hallways. The gravity generators would flicker on and off in the diplomatic quarters. Taeho and his engineering team worked day and night to fix these problems. Every time they thought they had found the cause, something else would break. The other human crew members started making jokes about the ship being cursed or haunted. Then last night something happened that made Taeho realize this was not about broken machines. He had been sleeping peacefully in his small room when a soft chiming sound woke him up. Someone was pressing the door button. At 2 o'clock in the morning, Taeho rolled out of bed wearing only his sleep pants and an old t-shirt. He pressed the door control and the metal door slid open with a quiet hiss. Standing in the hallway was Princess Jiwoo of the Mindbridge Empire. She was the most beautiful alien Taeho had ever seen. Her skin was pale blue, like the color of ice, and it seemed to glow softly in the dim corridor lighting. Her eyes were huge and violet-colored like precious stones. Her long silver hair moved like it was floating in water, even though there was no wind. The princess was wearing what she called ceremonial robes, but they looked more like fancy pajamas to Taeho. The fabric was thin and sparkly, and it moved around her body like liquid starlight. She stood in his doorway looking confused and embarrassed. "Please forgive me, honored human engineer," she said in accented standard language. "My mental compass seems to have wandered into the wrong direction. These metal corridors confuse my psychic abilities and I cannot find my way back to my quarters." Taeho rubbed his eyes and tried to wake up his brain. The Mindbridge Empire were famous throughout the galaxy for their powerful telepathic abilities. They could read minds and sense thoughts from miles away. They could navigate through space using only their psychic powers. The idea that Princess Jiwoo could get lost on a ship she had been living on for 3 weeks seemed impossible. It would be like a fish forgetting how to swim or a bird forgetting how to fly. "No problem, Your Highness," Taeho said while trying not to stare at her glowing skin. "Your quarters are on deck 15 in Section C. Just take the lift up 2 levels and turn left at the main corridor." He started to point toward the elevator when Princess Jiwoo stepped closer to him. She moved like she was dancing or floating. Her feet barely seemed to touch the floor. Now she was close enough that Taeho could smell something like starlight and ozone coming from her skin. It was the most amazing smell he had ever experienced. "You humans fascinate me, Engineer Kim," she said in a soft voice that seemed to echo inside his head. "Your minds are so closed and private, yet you accomplish such incredible things. In my culture, we share thoughts as easily as breathing, but you manage to build amazing machines and solve complex problems while trapped inside your own consciousness." She reached toward his forehead like she wanted to touch his temple with her fingers. Then she seemed to remember something and pulled her hand back. "Perhaps you could show me sometime how your people navigate without psychic guidance," she continued. "I would be very interested to learn about human methods of finding direction and solving problems." Before Taeho could think of what to say, Princess Jiwoo bowed gracefully like a dancer. Her silver hair fell around her face like a curtain. Then she turned and glided away down the corridor, moving so smoothly she seemed to be floating just above the floor. Taeho stood in his doorway watching her disappear around the corner. He felt confused and wide awake. His heart was beating fast and his mind was full of questions. He closed the door and sat on his bed trying to make sense of what had just happened. Princess Ju was known throughout the galaxy for having the most precise telepathic abilities of her entire species. She could sense thoughts and emotions from incredible distances. She could navigate through the most complex environments using only her mental powers. The idea that she could accidentally wander into the wrong part of the ship was about as believable as the sun forgetting to shine. But why would she lie about being lost? What reason could she have for visiting his quarters in the middle of the night, and why did she seem so interested in how humans think and solve problems? Taeho tried to go back to sleep, but his mind kept replaying the conversation. He remembered the way Princess Jiwoo had looked at him with those huge violet eyes. There had been something calculating in her expression, something that suggested her interest in human navigation had nothing to do with finding her way around the ship. The next morning, Taeho was checking power readings in the main engineering bay when his friend Dongwoo Park came looking for him. Dongwoo was a communications officer who always knew all the gossip on the ship before anyone else. "So I heard you had a royal visitor last night," Dongwoo said with a big grin on his face. "The entire crew is talking about it. The ship's gossip network works faster than our quantum communication system. It was nothing special." Taeho insisted, but even as he said the words, he could not stop thinking about Princess Jiwoo's glowing skin and violet eyes. "She just got lost and needed directions." "Lost," Dongwoo repeated with a skeptical expression. "Then the most powerful telepath in 3 galaxies got lost on a ship she has been living on for 3 weeks? That is what she said? And you believe her?" Taeho did not answer right away. He stared at the power readings on his computer screen, but he was not really seeing the numbers. His mind was still full of questions about the princess's midnight visit. "I think she was testing me for something," he finally admitted, "but I have no idea what kind of test it was or whether I passed or failed." Dongwoo nodded like this made perfect sense. "Well, whatever she was doing, you better be careful. These alien royals did not get to be important by being simple and honest. They all have their own secret plans and political games." That afternoon, Taeho threw himself into his work, hoping that staying busy would help him stop thinking about Princess Jiwoo. But every time he heard footsteps in the corridor outside engineering, he looked up hoping to see her blue glowing skin and silver hair. He was starting to realize that whatever had happened last night was just the beginning of something much bigger and more complicated, and he had no idea whether that was a good thing or a very dangerous thing. 3 days passed after Princess Jiwoo's midnight visit, and Taeho tried to focus on his normal engineering duties. He checked power systems and repaired broken equipment and pretended that nothing strange had happened, but he could not stop thinking about the princess's violet eyes and the way she had asked about human problem-solving methods. On Wednesday morning, Taeho was deep inside a plasma conduit trying to fix a temperature sensor when loud alarms started blaring throughout the entire ship. Red emergency. Lights flashed on and off in the engineering section, and his whole team rushed to their emergency stations. "Sir, we have cascade failures happening in sections 12 through 18, called out Petty Officer Haijin Lee from her computer station. "Something is drawing massive amounts of power from the main grid and causing everything to overload." Taeho crawled out of the conduit and wiped grease off his hands with a dirty rag. The power consumption readings on the main display screen were going crazy. Numbers were jumping up and down like someone was playing with the ship's electrical system. "Run a full diagnostic on all power systems." He ordered his team check every connection and every circuit, find out what is causing these fluctuations before we lose life support in the diplomatic quarters. Haijin's fingers flew over her keyboard as she tried to trace the source of the power drain. "The readings are not making sense, or it looks like something is pulling energy directly from our main reactors, but I cannot find any device that could do that." Before Taeho could respond, the engineering bay doors opened with a loud hiss. Princess Su Young of the Plasma Collective floated into the room, and immediately all the hair on Taeho's arms stood up from the electrical charge in the air. Princess Su Young was completely different from Princess Ji Woo. Instead of having a solid body, she existed as pure living energy contained inside a special force field generator. Her energy form flickered and sparked like lightning trapped in a bottle. Usually she maintained a humanoid shape, but right now she was unstable and changing form every few seconds. "Engineer Kim, I require immediate assistance," she said, and her voice crackled with static electricity. "My containment field is becoming destabilized, I fear. I may have accidentally interfered with your ship's power systems." While trying to adjust my energy levels, Taeho stared at the flickering princess and felt his brain trying to process what she was telling him. The Plasma Collective were the most advanced energy manipulators in the known galaxy. They could power entire star systems with their abilities. They built machines that ran on pure thought and controlled forces that other species could barely understand. The idea that Princess Su Young could not control her own containment field was like saying a master chef could not boil water. It was technically possible, but extremely unlikely. "Of course, Your Highness," Taeho said while trying to hide his suspicion. "Hyjin, reroute auxiliary power to the diplomatic sections and bring the backup generators online. I will handle the princess's containment field personally." His engineering team scattered to their tasks while Taeho led Princess Su Young to a shielded maintenance bay where her energy fluctuations would not interfere with sensitive equipment. The princess's form continued to flicker and pulse as he connected diagnostic cables to her field generators. "Your people's technology is quite remarkable," she said while watching him work. "These containment protocols are far more sophisticated than they appear at first glance. Most species simply build bigger power plants when they need more energy, but humans seem to make everything more efficient instead." Taeho glanced up from the scanner readings. The diagnostic equipment showed that her containment field was actually working perfectly. There were no malfunctions or instabilities anywhere in her system. "Efficiency is survival for us," he replied. "We do not have the luxury of unlimited resources like some species, so we have to make the most of what we have." "Yes, I have studied your history extensively," Princess Su Young said, and her energy form began to solidify into a more stable humanoid shape. "Your entire civilization is built on the principle of doing more with less resources. It is quite fascinating from a scientific perspective." She paused and seemed to be thinking about something important. Then she asked, "Tell me, how do you maintain such focus and determination when you know how small and weak you are compared to the rest of the galaxy?" The question surprised Taeho. It was not the kind of thing he expected to hear from someone who commanded the power of stars. Her energy form had completely stabilized now, and the diagnostic readings showed perfect containment parameters. "I guess we figure that being small just means we have to be smarter," he said. "We cannot overpower our problems, so we have to outthink them instead. We cannot rely on natural advantages, so we have to create our own advantages through intelligence and creativity." Princess Su Young's energy field pulsed brightly as if she was excited by his answer. "Fascinating, and this philosophy extends to all your endeavors, even personal relationships and social interactions." Before Taeho could ask what she meant by that question, she thanked him graciously for fixing her containment field and floated out of the maintenance bay. Her energy form was now completely stable and showed no signs of the problems that had supposedly brought her to engineering. Dongwu appeared at Taeho's shoulder moments after the princess left. "Let me guess," he said with a knowing expression. "Another accidental encounter with alien royalty, who just happened to need help with something they should have been able to handle themselves. This is getting very strange," Taeho admitted while disconnecting the diagnostic equipment. Two different princesses, two different technical problems that they definitely should not have had. And both problems disappeared as soon as I started asking the right questions. "Maybe they are just curious about humans," Dongwu suggested, but his voice sounded skeptical. "Or maybe someone is testing our responses to different types of crisis situations." That evening, Taeho sat in his quarters reviewing the ship's maintenance logs and power consumption records. He was looking for patterns in the data, anything that might explain why alien royalty kept having convenient accidents around human crew members. What he found in the computer files made his blood run cold. Every single accident or emergency involving alien royalty had occurred during duty shifts when specific human crew members were alone and vulnerable. The timing was too precise and too coordinated to be random chance. Someone was deliberately creating situations that forced humans to interact with alien visitors under stressful conditions. But why? What could they possibly learn from watching humans fix broken machines or solve technical problems? And why were they being so secretive about Iteho? Printed out the maintenance logs and spread them across his small desk. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. Princess Jivu's navigation failure had happened during the night shift when most of the crew was asleep. Princess Su Young's containment problems had occurred during the morning shift when the engineering team was at minimum staffing. Someone was studying human behavior under different conditions. Someone was gathering intelligence about how humans responded to unexpected problems and requests for help. The question was whether this intelligence gathering was friendly, scientific curiosity or something much more dangerous. A chill ran down Tejo's spine as he realized that Earth's entire future in galactic politics might depend on how well humans performed during these secret tests. He gathered up the printed logs and locked them in his personal safe. Tomorrow he would have to talk to Commander Cho, the ship's security chief, but tonight he could only lie in bed and wonder what kind of test would come next and whether humanity was passing or failing these alien examinations. Commander Yan Wucho listened to Tejo's concerns with the serious expression of someone who had been expecting this conversation for days. They sat in Cho's private office with the door sealed shut and electronic scramblers running to prevent anyone from listening to their discussion. I have been monitoring the situation carefully, Cho admitted while studying the maintenance logs that Tejo had brought. 3 separate intelligence services have sent warning messages to Earth Command. They think someone might be planning to disrupt the peace talks by seducing human crew members, Tejo asked with disbelief in his voice. By gathering detailed intelligence on human capabilities and psychological responses, Cho replied. Think about it logically. We are the newest species in galactic politics. Everyone wants to understand what makes us different, what our weaknesses are, and how to predict our behavior in different situations. Commander Cho pulled up a holographic display that showed the positions of various alien fleets throughout nearby star systems. The Galactic Council is not as unified as they pretend to be. There are at least 6 different factions that oppose humanity's inclusion in galactic politics. Some of them would do anything to prove that humans are too dangerous or too unpredictable to be trusted with advanced technology. Before Cho could explain more, emergency alarms began wailing throughout the ship. This time the alert indicated a hull breach in the diplomatic quarters, which meant that someone's room had lost atmosphere and people might be dying. Tejo and Cho raced through the corridors expecting to find emergency force fields and decompression protocols in effect. Instead they found a scene of chaos that made no sense at all. Princess Mi Young of the Metamorph dynasty stood in the center of a recreation room that looked like it had been hit by a tornado. Furniture was scattered everywhere. Wall panels were torn open, and pieces of broken equipment covered the floor. The princess herself appeared to be stuck in a half-shifted state, with her body flickering between her usual elegant humanoid form and something that looked disturbingly like a giant metallic spider. I cannot control the transformation, she said, and her voice kept changing pitch as her vocal cords shifted. Something about this ship interferes with my species' natural shape-shifting abilities. Engineer Kim, I have heard that you understand complex systems better than anyone. Please help me stabilize my form before I hurt someone. Tejo looked around the destroyed room and then at Commander Cho, who was already scanning for actual hull breaches with his portable sensor. The readings showed no atmosphere loss and no structural damage. The emergency was completely fake, but this time the deception was more elaborate and more desperate than before. Princes, with all due respect, Tejo said carefully, your people have been shapeshifters. For millions of years, I find it very hard to believe that a human ship could interfere with abilities that evolved before our sun even existed. for the first time since these royal accidents had started, one of the alien visitors faltered. Princess Mi-young's form suddenly solidized into her normal humanoid appearance, and her expression changed from helpless confusion to something much more calculating and intelligent. "You are more perceptive than we anticipated, Engineer Kim," she said while gesturing toward the destroyed room. With a casual wave of her hand, the damaged furniture began sliding back into place and the torn wall panels repaired themselves as if nothing had ever happened. "Very well, perhaps it is time for complete honesty between us." Commander Cho's hand moved toward his sidearm, but Princess Mi-young raised both hands in a peaceful gesture. "I mean no harm to anyone, but yes, this was a carefully planned test, as were the previous incidents with Princess Jiwoo and Princess Su-young." "Tests for what purpose?" Tae-ho demanded while trying to control his anger. "To understand why the galaxy should fear humanity." Princess Mi-young replied with complete seriousness. "Humans have been traveling in space for less than 2 centuries yet. You have already proven capable of accomplishing feats that ancient civilizations consider impossible. You have negotiated peace agreements between species that have been at war for thousands of years. You have solved engineering problems that stumped our greatest minds for millennia. You adapt to new situations and you innovate solutions, and you survive against odds that would destroy most other species." She began pacing around the restored room, and Tae-ho noticed that her body unconsciously started copying his posture and movements. "Some political factions in the galaxy believe that humanity represents an existential threat to the established order. Not because you are violent or aggressive, but because you are infectious in a way. Your ideas spread to other species. Your methods actually work when applied to different problems. Your philosophy of doing more with less is starting to influence civilizations that have remained unchanged for millions of years." Commander Cho kept his weapon ready, but his posture relaxed slightly. "So this was espionage against Earth intelligence gathering," Princess Mi-young corrected. "But not for the purpose of conquest or destruction. For survival, we needed to understand whether humans could be trusted with the kind of power and influence that comes with full membership in the Galactic Council." Tae-ho felt pieces of a complex puzzle clicking into place in his mind. "And the other princesses, what were they testing?" "Each of us was assigned to evaluate different aspects of human nature and capabilities," she explained. "Princess Jiwoo used her telepathic abilities to assess your psychological resilience and ethical flexibility under stress. Princess Su-young tested your technical adaptability and problem-solving approaches. When faced with unfamiliar energy systems, I was tasked with determining your capacity for recognizing and responding to deliberate deception." The room fell silent except for the quiet humming of the ship's life support systems. Finally, Tae-ho asked the question that would determine humanity's future. "What conclusions did you reach?" Princess Mi-young smiled, and for the first time since he had met any of the alien royalty, it seemed completely genuine and honest. "That the galaxy has much to learn from humanity, and perhaps much to fear as well. But it is fear born of respect and admiration, not hatred or jealousy." She walked over to one of the repaired wall panels and touched it gently. "Your species has something that none of us possess. You have the ability to look at any problem, no matter how impossible it seems, and find a way to make it work. You do not accept limitations as permanent. You do not rely on the advantages you were born with. Instead, you create new advantages through pure determination and creativity." Commander Cho slowly holstered his weapon. "And this makes us dangerous. It makes you inspiring," Princess Mi-young replied. "But inspiration can be the most dangerous force in the universe. When other species see what humans can accomplish, they start to question why they have accepted their own limitations for so long. They start to wonder what they could achieve if they adopted human methods of thinking and problem-solving." Tae-ho understood now why the tests had been necessary. The alien royalty were not just evaluating humanity's worthiness for galactic citizenship. They were trying to determine whether human influence would fundamentally change galactic civilization itself. "So what happens now?" he asked. Princess Mi-young's expression became serious again. "Now we prepare for the real test. The factions that oppose humanity are not going to accept our positive evaluation. They will try to prove that humans are too dangerous to be allowed to continue growing in influence." "How?" By forcing you to demonstrate your capabilities under the worst possible circumstances, she replied, and hoping that, when the galaxy sees what humans are truly capable of, they will be frightened enough to support your elimination through the room's viewport. Teho could see stars twinkling in the endless darkness of space. Somewhere out there, hostile alien fleets were probably already moving toward their position, ready to test humanity's survival instincts in the most direct way possible. Pattern of royal accidents was broken, but what would replace it might determine whether humans had a future among the stars, or whether they would be destroyed before they could prove their worth to the galaxy. Captain Nare Song called an emergency meeting in the ship's most secure conference room. The holographic displays around the table showed tactical information that made Teho's stomach twist with worry. 3 separate battle fleets were moving toward their location, and each fleet represented military forces that wanted humanity eliminated from galactic politics. The intelligence that our royal guests gathered has been shared with the Galactic Council leadership, Captain Song explained, and her usually calm voice showed signs of stress. The good news is that most alien species have concluded that humanity poses no immediate threat to galactic stability. The bad news is that the species who already opposed our membership have decided we are too dangerous to be allowed to continue existing. Princess Ji Wu, now revealed as a senior intelligence operative for the Galactic Council rather than just a royal visitor, stood beside the captain. Her violet eyes were bright with concern. The Void Hunters, the Conquest Syndicate, and the Purity Coalition have formed an unlikely military alliance. They plan to destroy this diplomatic summit and blame the attack on human aggression. This will give them justification for launching a preemptive strike against Earth. Teho looked around the room at his fellow human officers and the alien royalty, who had spent weeks testing their capabilities. How much time do we have before they arrive? 18 hours until the first enemy fleet drops out of hyperspace, Princess Su Young replied, and her energy form pulsed with agitation. The Unity's Dawn is designed as a diplomatic vessel, not a warship. Against 3 battle fleets with advanced weapons, we have no chance of winning a direct military confrontation. Then we run away, suggested Dong Wu, but Captain Song shook her head firmly. Running would confirm their propaganda about human cowardice and unreliability, she said. If we flee from this confrontation, it will prove to the galaxy that humans cannot be trusted in crisis situations. We need to find another solution. Princess Mi-young leaned forward across the conference table, and her form unconsciously shifted to mirror the determined expressions of the humans around her. There may be a possibility the tests we conducted over the past few weeks were not just about evaluating human nature and capabilities. They were also about identifying specific human abilities that other species completely lack. Such as what? Commander Cho asked while studying the tactical displays. Your incredible talent for accomplishing the impossible, Princess Ji Wu said with something like admiration in her telepathic voice. Every species in the galaxy has evolved specialized advantages that give them power. We Mindbridge have telepathic abilities. The Plasma Collective can manipulate energy. The Metamorphs can change their physical forms. But humans have developed something that none of us possess, which is what exactly? Stubborn creativity combined with adaptive intelligence. Princess Su Young replied, when faced with problems that seem impossible to solve, every other species either applies their natural evolutionary advantages or accepts defeat as inevitable, but humans do something completely different. You refuse to accept that the problem cannot be solved, and you change the fundamental rules of the situation. Teho felt a familiar sensation building in his mind. It was the same feeling he got when facing a seemingly impossible engineering problem, the kind of challenge that made his brain start working in new directions. You want us to find a way to defeat 3 battle fleets using only a diplomatic vessel, not defeat them through military force. Princess Mi-young corrected, something much better than that. Something that proves humanity deserves full membership in galactic civilization without firing a single weapon or causing any deaths. Captain Song studied the tactical displays with the intense concentration of someone trying to see through an impossible problem to a solution that did not exist yet. What assets and resources do we have available? 1 unarmed diplomatic vessel with a crew of 200 humans. Commander Cho summarized grimly. 12 alien royal delegations representing the most technologically advanced civilizations in the galaxy in approximately 17 hours before we are all destroyed, and one thing our enemies do not know we possess, Teho added as an idea began forming in his engineering mind. They think they are dealing with a standard diplomatic mission carrying typical alien royalty. They have no idea that this ship is full of alien leaders who have been studying human problem-solving methods for weeks. Princess Jiwoo's violet eyes began glowing brighter with excitement and understanding. You want to teach us to think like humans. I want to see what happens when the galaxy's most advanced species start actually adopting human approaches to impossible problems, Teho replied. Not just copying our technology or pretending to understand our methods, but truly learning to think with human creativity and determination. The conference room fell completely silent as everyone began to understand the implications of what Teho was suggesting. What he proposed had never been attempted in the entire history of galactic civilization. Different species had shared technology and formed military alliances, and even created hybrid offspring in some cases, but no one had ever tried to fundamentally change how multiple alien civilizations approach problem-solving. It could work brilliantly, Princess Si-Young said slowly, while her energy form flickered with nervous excitement, or it could result in the most spectacular failure in diplomatic history. Those are the only two options humans ever get offered, Dongwu pointed out with a confident grin. Spectacular success or spectacular failure. We are completely used to those odds by now, Princess. Mi-young's form began shifting rapidly as she processed the possibilities. If we could truly learn to think with human adaptability and combine it with our own species capabilities, we might be able to create solutions that neither humans nor aliens could develop independently. The risk is enormous, Princess Jiwoo warned. If we fail, the enemy fleets will destroy this ship and use our deaths as justification for attacking Earth. If we succeed, we will have changed the fundamental nature of galactic civilization itself. Captain Song looked around the table at the faces of her crew and their alien allies. Does anyone have a better suggestion? The silence stretched for several minutes before Commander Cho spoke up. I think we should try it. The worst thing that can happen is that we all die fighting for something we believe in. The best thing that can happen is that we save humanity and change the galaxy forever, Princess. Su-Young's energy form brightened until it was almost too intense to look at directly. Then let us begin. We have 17 hours to accomplish something that has never been done before. We have 17 hours to teach the galaxy's most ancient and powerful species how to think like the youngest and most adaptable species. Teho stood up from the conference table and felt his mind already beginning to work on the impossible engineering challenges ahead. Everyone who wants to participate in this experiment should report to the main engineering bay in 30 minutes. Bring any specialized equipment or knowledge that might be useful. We are going to transform this diplomatic vessel into something that has never existed before. What exactly are we building? Princess Mi-young asked. Something that will make our enemies wish they had never heard of humanity? Teho replied, something that will prove once and for all that humans deserve to be part of galactic civilization. As the meeting broke up and everyone hurried to their preparations, Teho realized that the next 17 hours would either establish humanity as a respected member of galactic society or result in the complete destruction of human space exploration. But those were exactly the kind of odds that made humans fight their hardest. The next 12 hours transformed the Unity's Dawn from a peaceful diplomatic vessel into something that had never existed before in galactic history. It became a collaborative workshop where the galaxy's most advanced alien species learned to think like humans. Princess Jiwoo's powerful telepathic abilities combined with human teaching methods allowed for direct knowledge transfer at speeds that should have been impossible in the main engineering section. Teho worked alongside Princess Su-Young to completely redesign the ship's power systems. Instead of using the traditional approach of building bigger generators, they implemented a distributed network that could dynamically reroute energy through any available system, including the life support units, the food processors, and even the luxury amenities in the royal quarters. This design is complete madness, Princess, Su Young said as her energy form interfaced directly with the ship's power grid. No civilized species designs electrical systems this redundant, chaotic. It violates every principle of efficient engineering. That is because no species except humans has. To assume that everything will break down at the worst possible moment, Tahoe replied while watching. Power flow readings that would have given any traditional engineer nightmares. We build systems that continue working even when they should not be able to function, Princess. Su Young's energy began flowing through the new power network, and suddenly, she understood what human engineering was really about. You do not build systems to work under ideal conditions. You build them to survive under the worst possible conditions. Exactly. We build things that can keep working even when half the components have failed and the other half are being used for purposes they were never designed for. In the shuttle bay, Princess Mi Young worked with Petty Officer Hai Jin Li to transform the ship's small craft into something unprecedented using the metamorphs. Shape-shifting abilities combined with human modular design. Philosophy, they created vessels that could reconfigure themselves for any purpose in real time. Your people's approach to engineering is absolutely terrifying, Princess Mi Young admitted, as she demonstrated a shuttle shifting from a cargo hauler to a sensor array to a communications relay in just seconds. You build machines that can become anything. We build machines that can survive anything, Haijin corrected while making adjustments. To the modular connection systems, adaptation is not a luxury for humans, it is the difference between life and death. Princess Mi Young's form flickered as she absorbed this concept. So every human machine is designed to be something other than what it appears to be. Every human machine is designed to be whatever we need it to be when we need it, Haijin replied. Because we never know what we are going to need until the crisis hits. Meanwhile, in the command center, Captain Song worked with the other royal delegations to implement tactical doctrines that no military academy in the galaxy had ever taught. Instead of traditional formations and battle plans, they developed fluid reactive strategies that assumed their enemies would do the most unexpected things possible. Human military theory is based on the assumption that your opponents are smarter, stronger, and better equipped than you are. Princess Jiwoo observed as she absorbed decades of human tactical knowledge through direct mental interface. Most species assume they have natural advantages they can exploit. We learned very early in our history that assuming you have advantages is an excellent way to get killed. Commander Cho replied, so we plan for disadvantages. Instead, we assume everything will go wrong, and then we prepare backup plans for our backup plans. The royal delegations threw themselves into the learning process with enthusiasm that surprised everyone, including themselves, for species that had spent millions of years perfecting their specialized evolutionary advantages. Thinking like humans was both exhilarating and terrifying. Prince Wu Jin of the silicon-based Crystal Empire worked with the ship's materials specialists to implement human-style improvisation into mineral-based construction. His people had always grown structures according to precise crystalline matrices that took thousands of years to perfect, but human methods taught him to build functional structures with whatever materials were immediately available. This is chaos, he said while watching human engineers create a communications array using crystal fragments, kitchen utensils, and pieces of broken furniture. Your people build things that should not work, but somehow they function better than our carefully designed systems. We build things that work because they have to work, explained Chief Engineer Minho Park. We do not have the luxury of perfect materials or unlimited time, so we make do with what we have. Princess Yuna of the plant-based garden collective learned human agricultural techniques that emphasized adaptation over optimization. Her species had perfected closed-loop ecosystem management that could sustain entire worlds for millions of years. But humans taught her how to make any environment livable through creative resource utilization. Your farming methods are completely illogical, she said while studying hydroponic systems that used recycled wastewater and artificial lighting. You grow food in environments that should be completely hostile to plant life. We grow food wherever we need food to grow, replied agricultural specialist So Young Kim, If the environment is not suitable for growing food, we change the environment, or we change our methods, or we change the type of food we grow. As the enemy fleets moved closer to their position, the transformed Unity's dawn became something that had never existed in galactic history. It was a fusion of every major species' capabilities guided by human problem-solving methodology. The ship itself was unrecognizable, bristling with improvised modifications that served multiple purposes and could be reconfigured at a moment's notice. Contact in 30 minutes, announced Lieutenant Hyunwoo Kang from the communications station. 3 battle fleets with a total of 47 ships, including 6 massive dreadnoughts. And what do we have to oppose them? Captain Song Esketeho looked around the command center at the alien royalty who had spent the last 12 hours learning to think like humans. Their eyes were bright with excitement and determination that he had never seen in alien faces before. We have something that has never existed before in galactic history. We have alien intelligence and capabilities guided by human creativity and stubbornness. Are you ready? Princess Jiwoo asked, and her telepathic abilities were now enhanced with human tactical instincts. No, Captain Song replied with a smile that would have made her human ancestors proud, but we are going to do this anyway. And that is the most human response possible. Princess Su Young's energy form pulsed with anticipation. What they do not understand is that we are no longer just aliens or just humans. We have become something new, Princess? Mi Young nodded, and her form shifted to mirror the confident postures of the humans around her. We have become proof that the impossible is just another word for something that has not been solved yet. As the enemy fleets prepared to drop out of hyperspace, the crew of the Unities Dawn made final preparations for a confrontation that would either prove humanity's worth to the galaxy or result in the destruction of everything they had worked to achieve. But for the first time since the crisis began, Taeho felt genuinely confident about their chances. They had taught the galaxy's most advanced species to think like humans, and there was no problem in the universe that could not be solved by beings who refused to accept that solutions were impossible. When the enemy fleets dropped out of hyperspace, they expected to find a defenseless diplomatic vessel ready for quick destruction. Instead, they encountered something that should not have been possible according to any known laws of physics or military science. The Unity's Dawn appeared to be in 12 different locations simultaneously. The diplomatic ship had become a master demonstration of human-inspired deception. Princess Mi Young's shape-shifting abilities, guided by human camouflage tactics, made the vessel appear as everything from a massive battle cruiser to a small asteroid field, depending on which sensors were looking at it. Princess Su Young's energy manipulation, enhanced with human electrical engineering principles, created sensor ghosts and false readings across 3 entire star systems. But the real surprise came when the enemy commanders tried to communicate with each other to coordinate their attack. Princess Jiwoo, working with the ship's communications array, had implemented something that no galactic military had ever encountered before: human-style information warfare. Every transmission between enemy ships was intercepted, analyzed, and subtly modified before being passed along to its intended recipient. Orders became confusing suggestions, tactical updates became contradictory, information and military coordination became complete chaos. "This is impossible," transmitted Admiral Kethver of the Void Hunters to his confused allies. The diplomatic vessel appears to be simultaneously at coordinates 127 Alpha, 445 Beta, and 892 Gamma. Our sensors show it as completely destroyed, fully operational, and never having existed in the first place. "Ignore all sensor data," replied Commander Zixthal of the Conquest Syndicate. "Focus on direct visual confirmation. Humans cannot manipulate light itself with their primitive technology." That was when Princess Yuna of the Garden Collective demonstrated what happened when plant-based bioluminescence met human special effects techniques. The space around the Unity's Dawn erupted in a spectacular light show that would have impressed any human movie director, creating the realistic appearance of massive space battles, fleet movements, and enormous explosions where absolutely nothing actually existed. Taeho monitored the developing chaos from the main engineering deck, watching Power consumption readings that should have been impossible to maintain with their limited resources. How are we keeping all these systems running simultaneously? Human power distribution principles, Princess Su Young replied as her energy form flowed seamlessly through the ship's modified electrical systems. Instead of drawing power from centralized sources, we are harvesting energy from everything around us: life support fluctuations, thermal differentials, gravitational stress from the enemy ship's proximity, even the electromagnetic radiation from nearby stars the enemy fleets found themselves chasing. Sensor ghosts shooting at elaborate illusions and receiving military orders that seemed to come from their own command structures but made no tactical sense whatsoever. But the real masterstroke came when Captain Song implemented the most fundamentally human strategy of all. She started talking to them, attention attacking fleets. Her voice broadcast across all enemy communication channels simultaneously, somehow cutting through their military encryption and electronic jamming with impossible ease. This is Captain Song of the diplomatic vessel Unity's Dawn. You appear to be lost and confused. The response from the enemy commanders was predictably aggressive. Surrender immediately, human vessel. You are completely surrounded and outgunned by superior forces. That is very interesting, Captain Song replied in a conversational tone. Because according to our sensor readings, you are the ones who are surrounded and outgunned. Also, your fleet formations are completely wrong for this type of military engagement. Your weapons are targeted at empty space, and your communications are being intercepted by at least 6 different intelligence services. None of that was strictly true, but Princess Jiwoo's telepathic abilities enhanced with human psychological warfare techniques made every word sound absolutely convincing. The enemy commanders began second-guessing their own sensor readings and questioning orders they were certain they had given correctly. This is Commodore Vashti of the Purity Coalition. A new voice entered the increasingly confused conversation. Human vessel, explain immediately how you are accomplishing these impossible technological feats. Which impossible feats would those be? Captain Song asked with innocent curiosity. The ones where we are defending ourselves against unprovoked military aggression, or the ones where we are doing it without firing a single weapon or causing any casualties. That was the precise moment when the established pattern of galactic military confrontation finally broke completely. For weeks, alien royalty had tested human capabilities and found them remarkable but still comprehensible within known scientific principles. But what the enemy fleets were experiencing went far beyond remarkable into the realm of the genuinely impossible. A single unarmed diplomatic vessel was outmaneuvering and outthinking 3 entire battle fleets, using tactics that should not have worked and technology that should not have existed. The human crew had somehow taught alien species to think in ways that transcended their own evolutionary limitations. Stand down all weapon systems, Admiral Kethver finally transmitted, and his voice carried a tone of genuine awe. We need to understand what we are witnessing here before anyone makes irreversible mistakes. That is the first intelligent thing anyone has said during this entire confrontation. Captain Song replied approvingly. Would you like to come aboard our ship and discuss this situation like civilized beings? We have excellent coffee and some very interesting people you should meet. 2 hours later, the commanding officers of 3 separate battle fleets sat in the Unity's Dawn conference room drinking human coffee and listening to alien royalty explain how they had learned to think like humans. The conversation